G'day everyone. This is a bit of a funny one. Me and Damo went to do a Facebook Live last night and we just cocked it up. I don't know what happened. It's a fascinating thing. Just didn't work. It just didn't work. So what we did instead is that Damo jumped on the phone and we just punched out the podcast that you're about to listen to. I've got another one in the bag. However, because the live failed, I'll move this one up. I think, like we said at the end of this one, you just got to keep going, guys, and keep trying. And we had the ability to do the podcast. It's the first one done over the phone, so I'll try and clean the audio up as much as I can. At least we got the option to do that. And look, thanks very much to those guys who jumped on the live and had patience with us for a little while. However, you know, these things happen, and we will figure live out, and we will be doing more going into 2019. I don't want to go on too much, guys. I know everyone's in the middle of Christmas chaos. If you found time to listen to this, thank you so much. And as the year draws to a close, just be cool. Everything's chaos out there at the moment. People are rushing to and fro. And however, just find some time to breathe. If you're getting a break, find some time to breathe and just reset and enter into 2019 nice and fresh. And above all, thank you very much for your time. As always, thanks to Jono for the intro, Rowdy for bathing the sun. And thanks to all the guests that have come on this year. Not sure if I'll post another one, so I'll just say this now. Thanks to everyone that's come on. Thanks to all our supporters. Thanks to everyone that's given us a chance. Really appreciate your time. And onwards and upwards for 2019. All right, guys. Enjoy bathing the sun. And we'll talk soon. Thanks. Cheers.
Today I sat in a field of paper daisies. The gentle breeze made the world wave to me. The day has come with a gold ring wrapped around it. I think I might just bathe in the sun. And I hope my world don't crash in over me, just like it did yesterday. I'm pretty sure the last mirror that I cracked was more than 7 years ago. And I don't want to wear those bullet holes no more. I want to kill my nightmare. And I've done nothing wrong to anyone. Then I just want to be better, better than who I am, better than who I am. Better than who I am, better than who I am. Moonlit river flows by gently, like the ocean made from the earth. It is healing all of my inner bleeding, even though it's only pictures in my mind. And I hope my world don't crash in over me, just like it did yesterday. I'm pretty sure the last mirror that I cracked was more than 7 years ago. And I don't want to wear these bullet holes no more. I want to kill my nightmare. Don't stick those pins in the dog that looks like me. I'm burning up, 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 I'm burning up. I'm burning up. I'm burning. Today I sat in a field of paper daisies. The gentle breeze made the world wave to me. The day has come with a gold ring wrapped around it. I think I might just bathe in the sun. I think I might just bathe in the sun. I think I might just bathe in the sun.
G'day everyone. We just had an experience. Damo's with me on the line. He's on the phone. How are you, mate?
Hey, man.
We just tried to do a Facebook Live and it failed miserably. However, we had
It took us, 40 minutes to quit. I suppose that's the point of tonight too, isn't it? Is that at what point do you, the law of diminishing returns, at what point do you go, okay, we'll just request support to help us and we'll just move on with that?
Well, I think so, mate. And I think the advantage to what we've been doing over the last little while is the fact that we now have this medium to fall back on, and we can, I can put this together and release it tomorrow. So at least the conversation goes out there to the people. So, mate, it was actually, it's a bit, when do you give up? I don't think you ever give up. So just to answer your question, and we will go live again. I don't know why I didn't want us to talk to each other, but as I say, there's more than, what's else? I'm more than one way to skin a cat, mate. So we're here on the other medium. You wanted to interview me pretty much, mate. So,
I think the real key thing for me, and I just want to, when I look at where we're going and where we're moving and where our mindset is that, what was that point where you went from thinking about, being a business owner and doing your podcast? Because it's amazing how all those things happen simultaneously when you make a decision, right?
Yeah, so that is true. That is true. Yeah, you are.
What was the actual the thing that you made the decision to say, hey, it's time to actually take action and stop planning, plotting, and talking about it? When did you actually decide to do the do and take that action?
Yeah, I think, mate, and once you posed this question to me earlier today, I did have a good think about it, because they did sort of coincide. I started my business first. Obviously, I left Ashley and went, oh, well, what am I going to do? I'll start my business, and I did land another training gig. And it was during one of those classes, mate, if I'm honest. And you've been a teacher yourself, and when you grab the audience, you grab your class. You know what I mean? They're fully focused on you and what you're saying and what you're trying to impart on them. And it was a day where I used to try and cram as much other stuff apart from logistics into a 5-day logistics course. And it was during one of my rants, I suppose you would call them, that I had the attention, and that day a few people came to me after the class and said, thanks very much for that, you know what I mean? You really changed my perspective on a few things. And I thought, and we'd spoken about it, because we've known each other a few years now, mate, and I'd spoken about the podcast but never actioned it. And I sort of realised that as part of my journey through my growth, and also that it seemed like I had something worthy to say, mate. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, through the work that I'm doing, I don't have the time to do what I want to do. However, I have the avenue through podcasting to do it anyway. You know what I mean? So that's sort of what happened. And I did the Wim Hof seminar, and like there's the early ones. And I released 5 in May that year, but it took me 2 or 3 months to actually put those together and get everything sorted. So, yeah, I think it was basically, I wanted to express myself, I think, and obviously meeting Frank and talking with you and the guys, even just the few guys we had around us, Angus and that we had, just at that time, who were willing to join me. It sort of gave me the support and also the personal strength to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's such a key thing is that, I think we only really talk about unlocking the code, sort of had that aha moment that we've just learned how to communicate now under different forums. And, I think when we talk about, hey, I'm interviewing you, but, what was the most pleasant surprise personally on your journey from talking and planning to take an action? I can answer myself really quickly. Is that the surprise for me is that it's the journey, but the thought process that you had before you took action to now you've taken action and what you would do now if you had to start again. it's a whole different conversation. It's a whole different ballgame.
Look,
And
I suppose I wouldn't do anything differently per se. You know what I mean? I think it's the 55 plus episodes we've got now. They represent their own evolvement and journey and story in itself. You know, and I think it's quite interesting now that obviously podcasting over the last 6 months in Australia has blown up. However, we, you know, in a couple of months we'll be 2 years old. You know what I mean? We've been here since before it really blew up from an Australian perspective, and I wouldn't really change anything. When the pleasant moments that surprised me, there's so many, mate, because it's been a short time but a very long time, and a bunch of things. You know, like I think one of the things that surprised me, and you know, all the boys, the Magnificent Seven, you know what I mean, that we did the podcast with. But all those guys individually in the studio and wherever we've done podcasts, just the honesty that, you know, yourself has shown, that everybody has shown to come on and just be themselves, you know what I mean? And there's other little things like, you know, I know Chris Thompson, the guy that designed the logo, you know, I know he picked up his pens and really started drawing again through some of the things that we were saying. You know, there's another listener of ours, Hugh Chili's, found our card in Newstead in the gutter, picked it up, and is now a loyal listener. And just the fact that, you know, obviously observing the podcast, that we generally have an international audience. As humble and small as this Podcast is at this point, we're across about 10 different countries, mate. You know, we've got Switzerland, USA, Spain, the UK, Malaysia. You know what I mean? It's quite insane to think that. So to try and pinpoint a moment, because that was probably the question when you sent me the questions. I was like, wow, how do I even answer that? You know, there's so many humbling little moments. You know, the milestones that come across. You know, and I think it's humbling is what it is. And it still continues to be. You know, obviously, I have to work around, you know, running the business and my wife having her own business and kids and life in order to do this. However, this is a passion project of mine that I'm not going to stop, and I won't stop, basically. And although I want it to be successful and would I love to make money out of this, absolutely, that's not the goal. And I think that's probably the key, is that the reason I'm doing this because it's a love, not because of anything else. You know what I mean? It's
yeah. And that's so cool. You talk about a passion project, and you know, I suppose you sort of know with my questions about, you know, if you don't follow those passions that you've got, you're not gonna, you know, maintain what you're doing, and you know, your environment will always, you know, I suppose outwill your motivation. But if your environment's right and people will you forward, that helps. And I think I can say is that, you know, from being around people like yourself, and it's amazing how all of us now are taking action on all the little things and all our passion projects and the things we love. And now we get to express that into words, in books.
Yeah, look, I think that's right, mate. And for me, there's two sides to what have I gotten the most out of this podcast. One side is obviously very personal. You know what I mean? This has been my own personal journey. I host it. You know, you boys come along for a ride. We have some fun. We talk about some stuff. And, you know, my ability to communicate and my vocabulary and everything like that has exponentially grown out of sight. And the amount of information and all those sorts of things. And just the personal growth from a spiritual, mental and physical point of view. Because, I mean, you've got to realise too, mate, that, you know, I've dropped 100 pounds in the old money since I started this podcast. You know,
yeah.
I mean? It's applying it's actually, and from a personal standpoint, like the stuff that I put on Instagram and the stuff that I put on Facebook and all those sorts of things, I genuinely try to live that every day. You know what I mean? That's not, you know me, the stuff that I write on Instagram, you know I would say that to you exactly word for word. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
And
I'm starting to have I'm scheduling my posts now for my businesses because, the reality is that I've sort of worked out is that, it really doesn't matter what source of income you're trying to find, is that it's really all about marketing it to as many people as possible. And, you talk about it being a numbers game. When it comes to business, it is. It's just getting in front of enough people face to face, and that's why we want to do the live, so people can see the people between the sheets.
Absolutely, and expand that side. So there is the personal side to what I've gotten out of the podcast. However, the other side, and one of the most awesome sides, is to watch you boys grow. You know what I mean? Watch the Magnificent Seven and all the other guys that have been a part of it. You know what I mean? They've all grasped their eccentricities and taken their own path. And the fact that I may have had some, even just the smidge of contribution to that is so awesome. You know what I mean? And it's actually part of what keeps me going. You know what I mean? It's knowing that we have an international audience. It's knowing that you boys are embracing the stuff, not only that I put out, that we share offline. When we get together and do a podcast like this, we share together. You know what I mean? And I think that's what it's about, mate. And you're right. I know. And I suppose from an audience perspective, I think, some of the stats coming out of podcasting, just because that's obviously my realm, is that's the hardest thing that people face is marketing. And I think because it was a passion project and I sort of did it, moving into 2019, that's one of my focuses for the podcast, is to look at different marketing strategies and really try and get it in front of more people to grow it to a point where it can sustain itself and just to spread the message. Because I think, you're 80, 100 centimetres down and, 10 kilos yourself, mate, just recently. You know what I mean? It's like the guys, Matty Tomlinson, he's going to be representing his seat in the Senate. You know what I mean? Like that's all coming together. Like there's so many guys that are doing so many things, and so many awesome messages that other people. And I don't think it's arrogant of me to say that other people need to hear it, because it's good content. I believe in the content, and I believe in the format, and also believe in the podcast. And I think. I've got I've got Mark 2 of the T-shirts that we've got. You know what I mean? Like that's very cool as well.
And we all have our strengths now. Is that the network that we're building? And it's funny that I look at guys now that are they were in construction or politics or business owners. Is that they all start together, and when they get through their iteration into their 70s, that's 40 years of relationships and helping. But everyone has a different skill. And I suppose for me is that I drew a line in the sand and said, look, what's the one, I suppose, value that everyone across every aspect of business needs? And it was marketing, and that was the option I took. And it was a pure strategy to, so what does everyone need? Everyone needs to market a product, and everyone needs to look at things that way and provide. You can talk about providing a service, but if you don't get it out to everyone and people don't see it, it doesn't matter.
That's true. It doesn't matter. And I suppose that's why. And I mean, the other thing for me too is, mate, is that as evidenced by our total and utter failure on social media tonight, I'm not very well versed. I've only been on social media since the podcast started, and grasping all those sorts of things, and you've got to try and tap into that and use it for the tool that it is. And look, I've seen a steady growth in Instagram and all those sorts of things. However, it's about, I think, 2019, one of the things is about how do we accelerate that growth? How do we, and I think the lives are part of that, you know what I mean? And I think attaching, networking with guys like Richard and, tapping into some of the other things that other guys are doing as well. If we, like you say, everyone's got their strengths. If we work together, we can achieve our goals, although they're separate. We can assist each other to achieve those things, And
I think for us is that, you've got the podcast and it can go for 2 hours, but I think, say you and I do a marketing plan for 2019, and one of our mutual things is that, we do a 1 hour live every month, and the topic is whatever we're going through at the time. You know what I mean?
And look, I think looking at the mic, mate, because obviously we were going to record, the phone's coming through fine, so I think we can dual release it through the podcast, which was the plan tonight. You know what I mean? I think, and we cross section that and have more ability to do that. I think that's where it comes in, you know. And it's getting more followers and all that sort of stuff. I do think authenticity is very important as well. I think, especially in today's age, and especially through social media. That's why I make sure that my posts, the posts that I put on Instagram and the things that I say, not only do I believe them in myself, but that's genuinely who I am, and that's genuinely what I try and do every day. Because I think if you're not doing that, there's a lot of fake shit out there that can it's not authentic. And I think especially in this day and age, we've got to be authentic, you know.
Yeah. We can have a Facebook life and photos that people enjoy and like, but it's not the real version of ourselves. So I suppose that the thing that I was looking at from our perspective is that, so what has opened your eyes to other opportunities, and how do you sort of see, you know, the podcast being a passion project and something you enjoy, because, you know, it puts positive energy into your day, right? So, you know, that positive energy then flows into everybody else in other aspects, and then other opportunities come up. So just really quickly is that, you know, you start with the podcast by taking action, and we all have had, you know, we go through some really, really deep subjects, you know. We I think if we recorded how many hours of podcasts we'd listen to, people would just be like, how do you have enough time?
Yeah, that's right. That's right, yeah.
You make a priority, and, you know, what's really opened your eyes to the opportunity for, you know, that book that you've been you've pretty much drafted one, haven't you? You've got a bit of a start, and
look, I think there's a couple of things there. I think because obviously it sort of dawned on me recently that I have been running my own business for a couple of years now, and it's more of a consultation type thing that I'm doing. However, it has morphed and evolved, and I think diversification is the key. Like, obviously, I'm working with a company now. However, and the majority of my time will be spent helping them get to where they need to be. However, still diversifying myself through the podcast and through other opportunities. You can't limit yourself. And I think what a lot of people would be amazed, and one of the things that teaching taught me, and what led to me doing the podcast as well, is that I've got a shitload of experience. Do you know what I mean? I've been in the jungle, I've been in the desert, I've been in the bush. I've done a lot of things on my go round, and a lot of people have. I'm not unique in that. A lot of people have got a very interesting story to tell. And one of the things that teaching taught me is that sharing your knowledge is power, yes. However, it's nothing if it isn't shared. And it's interesting, I think, and look, this is sort of the first time I've mentioned it on the podcast, is that the book actually came before the podcast, right? So I've actually written, I think it's 17,000 words already into this book that, you know, and it's sort of been nagging at me. And it's quite interesting, the chapters that have, I don't want to give too much away, but the chapters that are remaining to be written can now be written through the experience that I gained through the podcast. You know what I mean? So it's quite fascinating, you know.
And isn't that a symbol of yourself as a person? You know, it's sometimes it's all about is that you start off in one direction and another opportunity pops up, another one pops up, another one pops up, and the original thing you were, you know, starting to do gets lost in the wash.
Well, the book's never been lost. It's just, I think, and it's quite funny that it's come back around. It's like an earworm in my head at the moment. You know what I mean? I think the universe is telling me that I need to move on it. You know, because in fact, Unlocking the Code, the name of the podcast, actually came from the name of the book. The book is called A Code for the Modern Man, because the whole thing behind the podcast is that we've got to try and sort our own shit out, right? Because there's no code that we can live by. There's no initiation, there's no honor, there's no, you know, chivalry, you know, all these things that, and they can be negative. However, they also can be very, very positive as well. And I tried to, the book, I think if I'm thinking about it, so I'm about to turn 36 in a couple of months' time, I'm pretty sure the first sentence of the book is that I'm 33. So it was the book that actually got started a long time before I released about a year before I released the podcast. And I think I had more to say, and I think it was about building a platform. We talk about platforms and we talk about, marketing and all these things, is that if I just wrote a book and tried to publish a book, they'd be like, well, that's great. Who are you? However, now I don't have a major platform. However, I have a basis of a platform that I'm building in the background, that if I, when I do go ahead with the book and finish it and get it sorted into 2019, there is something there. You know what I mean? There's a there as opposed to, just some dude writing a book.
Yeah. And you know what's really funny is that when people talk about starting a business or doing a podcast or everything, the number one thing is that you need a profile. Is like you need to be famous first, because, if you looked at the person now and said, look, we've been to over 100 countries. How many downloads are you up to now?
Heading towards 6,500.
Yeah. And if you said I'd had that many downloads in that many countries, when you look at an expectation, you'd be like, wow, that's a great platform.
Yeah. If
I had my book ready, if you said now I've actually got a platform and a basis that I can actually, go on Audible and do a free web book and then get subscribers and get people and build it, because this is the thing that people fail to realize. And I did a post, a passion post earlier in the week about, I'm 15 years in the making. I fucked up heaps still. I've even had conversations with people today that are unhappy about certain circumstances and things that, you just got to turn around as an adult and say, yeah, well, fair enough, as much as you want to be perfect, you can't.
We know nothing is perfect, Damo, mate. I think, I think the post that I put yesterday, I think it was sometimes I'm a mystery to myself, and then I think I said, as you should be. You can't. You are forever growing and forever evolving, and no one's perfect, mate. And I think you get through podcasting. Obviously we're massive fans of Joe Rogan. He's had some high profile people on his podcast, and they're just dudes. They fucked up as well, and to pretend that you're not going to fuck up again, you're kidding yourself, mate. You know what I mean? However, if you can live your truth and be a truth warrior as much as you can, without obviously hurting people, then you can build that platform through authenticity. And I think that's what the podcast is about. And
it's amazing is that, could you imagine reading a book and going, I'm interested in that, and then what Joe does? So his guy that he was interviewing today was that, I've read your book, I've watched all your stuff, and I want to talk to you. And the guy's like, yeah, I'll come, because the guy's got 3.5 million subscribers, and he's got like 400,000 people viewing his podcast, and he's been doing it over many years. And when he first started, they talk about everything that they had, like now they've got a big complex where they had like a room, so everyone starts in those iterations.
Well, Joe started it in his house, mate, in his study, in his house. And it was just a joke,
And I know for me now is that I'm at a point now where I'm at capacity, and I can't do everything on my own. And I'm learning from a business sense is that the whole point of business is to leverage and duplicate. That if I can do something, and my greatest value, and I know we can sort of look at it as that my greatest value that I can give and learn, when you talk about in business, and ultimately everyone works in a business to make the most money they can, is that if I can duplicate what I'm doing and other people can do it, I can only work for X amount of hours a day. So, and that's the basis of the 21st century now, is that, no one believes they're going to work for 40 hours a week and get the life's pleasures of the world. We have to work on our passion project. We have to work on all these different things, and we have to really, move towards, having that inner peace for me, like, I talk about peace under pressure. And, I suppose that's what we're trying to search for, is that when we're under pressure and what are we looking at, how do we come out of it? Like, I know you've got some big things trying to do with, purchasing a house, and, you've got the two young kids under the age of school age, so they're home 24/7. It's a great experience, and those things, it's not that they take their toll. They take that time, and the momentum you get from loving them and caring for them is such a huge thing.
Oh, look, man, I think it's and look, don't forget, my wife also runs a business out of our home as well, and quite a successful little business as well. So it's like you've got to have an understanding, I suppose, when you're in the dynamic that me and my wife have, which is, she has to do her thing, I do my thing. I work, she works. You've got to try and allocate the time to follow these things, and you've got to recognise that these things, these passion projects, and the things that actually give you peace and give something back to you that may not be monetary straight away. However, it gives something that's almost more valuable to you than money. You know what I mean? And it's like, you've got to, I think, what was it? Find 3 hobbies: one that makes you money, one that keeps you fit, and one that makes you happy, or something like that. You know what I mean? And I think in today's day and age, we've realised that the whole 9 to 5, 40 hours a week till you're 65, then you retire and die, is not the way we want to play it. You know what I mean? Like you say, you've got to find things that have a passion, find a way to do it, and then work with others of a like mind to achieve those goals. Because we all have our experience. You know? We all have our...
And I did see a post from Trent today, and it talked about relationships and, and all the needs that people have, because they have so much access to all these things that, I have this deep-seated belief is that now they talk about traditional relationships, is that, what's traditional 20 years ago and what's traditional now are completely different things. And, there's no incentive now for that companionship to be above more of a superficial level, because you can get a lot of the other things that you get out of relationships through other vehicles now. And that's just another big discussion point, is that, I think the topics of the modern day are, we're poor at communicating now. So funnily enough, our relationships we have with people are worse. Yet we've never had more accessibility to technology, information, and, you can measure your intelligence with people, but we have never had more trouble trying to work out on face value where we're going, because
that is a big problem, mate. That is a big problem. I see that as, and look,
and
that
in
is
business.
If
People don't have a stable relationship, they don't have a stable job.
No.
And if they're in a job and they have an unstable relationship, those are the people that are getting fired. Those are the people that are, getting demoted and not getting promoted and lash out and blame other people. And then we've got this whole society of people, complaining about everything's too hard. And they could probably stem it back to that day where, if that relationship had more stability, that maybe they probably didn't do what they did to get them in that position.
Well, I think it's in some ways, mate, like we talked about before, is that we all fuck up. And look, when you're in a relationship, it takes a lot of work, you know what I mean? Like, and if communication is the key, like, I think, I mean, I've got to credit my wife. She made me talk, you know what I mean? And and through making me talk has led me to do this, and led me to teach, and led me to do the things that I'm doing now. So, like, what's the saying behind every great man is an even better woman telling him what to do? You know what I mean? Like, I think...
Yeah, it's very true. And I did send a messenger to your wife just talking about how bad we suck at Facebook Lives.
Yeah, we do suck a lot. We do suck. Look, we'll fix it, man. We won't... Like that was my first. Like I did a live with Trent, but he sort of added me. He'd done it 1,000 times. I'd never.
Yeah.
We'll fix that. But I think going back to like relationships and stuff, we do need to be more open-minded. If the traditional relationship is not something that suits you, then you need to be open-minded. We all need to be understanding. However, at the same time, if you listen to the guys that are about open relationships, they say there's nothing wrong with a traditional relationship if that's what works for you. I think it's just about being open-minded about what works for you, but just fucking communicating, you know what I mean? It's crazy that we can't talk, you know what I mean? However, and I think it's predominantly a male problem, let's be honest, you know what I mean? And that's the whole reason behind what I'm trying to do here. And, the fact that blokes like yourself have come on, and even when you had your wig out the first time, mate, and then you came back and discussed that, you know what I mean? Like that takes that takes a lot of balls and a lot of guts to admit that that's what happened to you. However, that was an evolving and growing experience. And I think if we can provide examples to other men and other people, then, and I've heard this, from other listeners as well, that us talking makes them want to talk. You know what I mean? And that's what it's about, man. Because if we can't learn to communicate in whatever form of relationship that we're in, and realise that it's a two-way street, and that men and women are just different, you know what I mean? And they think differently and they communicate differently. However, there is a middle road there that you can access to communicate effectively. And I think the other thing is too, mate, is that the whole get married at 20, have two and a half kids, and you're married forever, and all that sort of stuff. The reality of it is that something like 75% of marriages end in divorce. I think there's a delusion of modern society of how relationships and communication and all these things are supposed to go, that we need to be aware of, like everything else, is bullshit. You know what I mean? Like,
well, look, I think also because there's so much different things you can distract yourself with. So if you're a single person, single adult, male or female, there's enough distraction in the world where you can get enough companionship, enough attention, enough of your needs met to get by. So you don't sit at home at night going, oh, I don't need to, class myself as a failure because, I'm not in a relationship, or I'm not married, and I don't have that typical life that people say we should have, because I'm happy just being me.
But I think that's I honestly believe
this is like that too, because why would you employ people who, can't manage their own lives? Then you ask them to manage your business.
I don't think most of us can. And I think the model or the stereotype or whatever it is that we've been led to believe is the way, I think it's total bullshit. I think it's a grand delusion that we all...
It's safe. It's safe because if we all do it and we all follow the path, then we don't have to think outside of those things.
That's right. And I think you hit the nail on the head with distraction, yeah? There is so many distractions in the modern world. And look, I do believe that there is a growing movement of people trying to wake up and trying to sort their shit out, and that's fantastic. However, overall, there's still a lot of people that we live in a form of delusion. You know what I mean? And I think, I count my blessings every day that I found my wife. However,
yeah, of course.
I was 30 before I found her. You know what I mean? I had a lot of failures and a lot of fuck-ups before then. And, the funny thing about when I met my wife, though, mate, is that before I met her, I had strived and gone inside myself and worked out and did my sort of first big evolvement and got myself to the point where I was happy being me, and I had some semblance of an idea of who I was, and that's what brought her into my life. You know what I mean? It's like once you accept who you are, once you embrace and love yourself to a point, that then opens you up. You talk about energy, you know what I mean? You talk about, people helping each other out and networking, all those sorts of things. I think it's the same thing with, relationships and finding the person you're supposed to be with. It's like once you get to a point where you're ready to have that person in your life, then, they will arrive. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people are forced into things that, at younger ages, or you find yourself in a shit situation that you can't get out of, which we've all been in, but you can't get out of it because you're trying to do the right thing and all these sorts of things. Whereas, and the hard thing, and it's seen as selfish, the right thing is the right thing for you. And it
that's right.
Doesn't matter about anyone else. You know what I mean? And that's difficult when other people and kids are involved in all that sort of stuff. However, long term, you need to be your genuine self. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, most definitely. And when we embark on our journey across all our different mediums and what we do, is that I would base it on a presumption that no one wakes up on any day ever going, how am I going to make someone else's world a little bit tougher or worse, or for whatever reason, because, my health and my relationships aren't what I want it to be, and I don't have that, nourishment of my mind to go, well, I need to work on these things and stop displaying it to other people. Because, I had a guy back into me today. I was, doing what I was doing, picking up the kids from their mothers, and just, doing what you do around Christmas. And that guy didn't wake up going, man, I'm just going to back into this guy's car and put a massive dint in it and, ruin my day and his. Fortunately, the car's a drivable and the things were smashed. But you know what? I don't think I talked to people about that apart from the, people that needed to know. It didn't go on a Facebook post. It didn't go on, oh, look at me, look at the dent in the car, look at all these problems, because I understand that, that guy didn't wake up going, I'm just going to wait for this guy to come into a driveway and I'm just going to back into his car.
Yeah.
And I think if we can just back the truck up a little bit on that and realise is that I respect that when people make mistakes, that they impact you and you're not going to like it. Equally, I don't know anyone that's done anything with intention, and that's why we talk about violence, because that's the act of, you can see the intention. But it's all the other stuff that makes people sort of go into their shell, because, I digress a little bit, but I'll just finish my thought process, is that, everyone has a freedom value. So when they wake up in the morning, they've got to go to work or do something to earn something to sort of have their basic needs met, because they haven't worked out what their actual freedom value is. So what's the cost of the income that they need to make to get by? And, if people lost their jobs in 2 weeks, they wouldn't be able to pay their bills. And we live like that for how long? And that's acceptable?
Well, it's what society deems it to be acceptable. And look, going back to, the guy back into, you're totally right, mate. And I think if you can I love the concept that Aubrey Marcus talks about, whereas try and see everyone as if they're you leading a different life. We've all had our struggles and our trials and our tribulations. And some people, and I think freedom is an interesting word, right? And free will, freedom is a bit of an illusion in the sense, I think. However, you can seek out your own personal freedoms through stuff like we're doing now, through the podcast, through through your own fitness goals or whatever, and everybody has that choice, and just some people don't choose to make it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that means, that doesn't mean that they're any less than you are or any more than you are. It's just that they're on a different path. They're in a different stage of what they're trying to do. You know?
Yeah, and I've worked out, exactly what my freedom value is, monetary wise. Going back to the bare bones and the essentials of, if it all went to shit, what would I do? And I look at, I'm going to probably get an award for best agent of the area I work in. Our office will definitely 100% get the award because, our office has sold the most properties because I have. I had, I leveled up in my network marketing business and, that was that $550 last week just by having a few conversations with people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there was no satisfaction there. There was no joy of like, oh, that's amazing and what have I done? It's just, okay, that's done now. What's next?
Okay, but so I need to ask you a question then, mate. Why? What is it within you that can't take? You must take those wins, mate. You must take the pleasure that comes out.
There's enough passion to do it and to drive and do it and say, yes, it's a genuine passion and I enjoy it. But ultimately, it doesn't. When you have so many good things happen to you in a short period of time and you're not used to it and you're used to being downtrodden and negative and everything else, to be honest, I just don't know how to deal with it. That's the honesty.
Yeah,
I actually don't know how to embrace all these good things happening because my mind, which I'm trying to reprogram, is used to, well, you're just waiting for something bad to happen.
Yeah.
And that happened today with the car, but because it was just so ineffectual to my mindset and my day, I just moved on with it. So I think sometimes when you grow, as a person externally and people see that growth, I think sometimes you don't know the measure of your change.
No, and I think it's important. And look, I'll be with you in saying that I find praise very hard to deal with as well, mate, to be honest. I do. It's one of my big problems, like I've talked about a few times. And, I was given some very heartfelt messages when I was teaching and changing people's perspectives for the better. However, of course. It's when I would read that, I wouldn't even register that it happened. You know what I mean? However, I think you've got to, like you're saying, as long as you're trying to reprogram yourself and you're trying to understand that these are positive things, I think it's about living in the moment, mate. You know what I mean? So and there's always contrast. You know what I mean? Like you will have good things happen, you will have bad things happen. And whether or not it's how can you influence either one of those things? Because you have a contributing factor in everything that happens to you. However, I think it's a very negative society as well, mate. I think there's a very societal thing there where everyone's so negative and everyone's so. On one hand, it's wow, look at me on social media, but on the other hand, you look at the news and it's all blood and guts and violence, and it's like there's such a dichotomy. But that is the contrast. You know what I mean? You do try and have to embrace the positive things. I think the thing is though, mate, is that, and you might resonate with this, is that I find that I don't want to be arrogant, you know what I mean? So I don't want to be how fucking awesome am I when good things happen. However, there is a way, and you've got to try and learn to say, you know what, actually I did do a fucking good job, and I can accept that I've done a good job and receive the praise because you did a good job. You know what I mean? You've done something well, and people are recognising that. And feel that, and you can feel that without it being overriding, without it being how fucking awesome am I, because you are awesome. You know what I mean? What you've done, when don't forget we've known each other for, 4 years now, mate. Like we've been on a fucking ride ourselves, man. You know what I mean? Like there isn't a month that's gone by since we met each other that we haven't chatted or caught up or done something, you know what I mean? And we've both been on a ride, and what you've done is awesome, right? And I can say that to you, and you've said that to me, and both of us probably find that hard to compute. But as long as you're working on it, mate, and I think that's all anyone can do. You know what I mean? You just got to work on it. You know, and if you're going to receive an award, man, that's fucking great, dude. You know what I mean? You need to display that shit proudly and embrace that moment for what it is, because it's recognition for your hard work. You know? You know? And you've got to find passion and emotion are two separate things, and you want to try and do your job and do it effectively without being too emotional, because then you become attached to it, too attached to an outcome, you know, and that's what we've learned is don't be attached to the outcome, embrace the journey, or that sort of thing. However, when these wins come, you still need to recognise them, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'll wrap up the thought process for tonight, because the point of these is we want them to be short and sharp, and I know I can waffle on as well.
We can talk for ages, mate. We will wrap this up, you know what I mean? I think it's, and look, it's a shame we didn't get the live done, but we'll figure it out, mate. You know what I mean? It's
yeah, for sure. So I just want to just quickly recap just for that last minute is that, you know, we can talk about all the things we've gone through in the last 4 years, but what's your gratitude moment? What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word gratitude? What's the one bit of gratitude that you've had in the last, you know, since you've taken the action to do the podcast and be in your business? What's that one bit of gratitude that you've come across that's just put that smile on your face?
Oh, look, it's a little bit corny. However, the support I've had from my wife to embrace all these things, I've got eternal gratitude for that.
Awesome.
That's the immediate thing that comes to mind, because without that support, like you said, at home and all that sort of stuff, that you can't do these things. You know what I mean? And then second to that is, you know, I'm sitting in the studio right now that we knocked together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And seeing this humble little thing grow, I'm thankful for it. I'm thankful for the things that it's given me, and the information that it's given me, and the friendships that it's helped me build, and all the things behind it. You know what I mean? It's and gratitude's an interesting one. You must work on gratitude. So I think what we just talked about before, as far as you getting your award and stuff like that, it's not about feeling how awesome you are. It's about having gratitude for those achievements. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, so
it's always a moment in time. You don't always remember the date or what you were wearing, but you always remember how you felt.
Yeah, that's right.
I always smell onions, and always remember Friday night when I was a kid, because Dad would come home and cook the barbecue. And, you know, my ultimate gratitude is that I can see the kids when we have, you know, like a slumber party and certain things that, you know, we're creating these experiences and those patterns for them that when they're older they can resonate and go, well, you know, that was our thing. That's what we did. And that's probably the thing that I look at and be like, you know, they're going to have those experiences too, and we've got to try and, you know, make those rituals, no matter how you talk about corny they are, you know, talking about, you know, how great it is to have a supportive partner, is that, you know, the little rituals that you guys have built up over time. I can't talk to you the amount of times I've gone past a shop or a street or a restaurant and remembered those moments and times I've had with important people. And, you know, because you live in the same city generally, you can't really go many places without resonating with an experience. And, you know, I'm like the gratitude of that as well.
I think so, mate. I think so. But I think it's important to sort of wrap up the thought process that we're on, is that we must have gratitude for our own achievements, mate. Because if we had sat down at the bloody Deception Bay Bowls Club
Yeah.
after that first class. It was so terrible. And I had
Disaster.
said, and I'd have said to you, mate, in 4 years' time, you're going to be a successful real estate agent, a homeowner. You're going to be, you're going to be on fitter than you've been in a long time. All the positive things that have happened to you, and then you turn around and said, "Oh, well, you're going to be a successful podcaster." All the things that I've done. We would have both called each other crazy. However, we must have, and it's not. And the thing about, I think that with gratitude, it's like, just because we have gratitude for this moment in time, doesn't mean it's the end. It's just another step.
Yeah, because it's now the new normal. So now we know that there's a new normal to find, and I think that's where we sort of keep moving towards, and it's forever. It's forever the journey.
Always, man. Always, bro. Well, mate, let's wrap this up. I think that's it. It's a 50-minute now, but that we plan to be about an hour, so that's fine, mate. I'm happy with that.
Good.
What I'm going to do is I'll jump off here and I'll punch an intro and I'll release this tomorrow and I'll tag in it and apologise to Facebook.
It's hilarious. I love it, man. That's just what we do.
It's well, mate. We didn't give up and we still got it done anyway. And I think there's a lesson there, man. You know what I mean? It's that as long as you do something. And when you commit to do something, you find a way, because there is a way,
Yeah, of course, man.
And just as an ending thing, like if you think about our journeys, mate, I know you apply this discipline as well. I just try and do something every day, even if it's a small thing, even if it's a little thing. A single post on the page, or even just looking at Instagram, or looking at articles, or looking at research. Or I might spend hours on it. You know what I mean? You just got to keep going. Do something every day. The lesson for me for 2018 is just keep fucking going. Don't stop.
Yeah, of course.
All right, brother. Well, always a pleasure. A pleasure.
All good.
We will. We'll figure this live thing out, man. I think we do aim for once a month to open up that marketing base. We'll talk more offline about that. Thanks,
cool,
man. And we'll Merry Christmas to everyone, because this will be the last podcast before I post before Christmas. So Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Be festive. Be happy.
Yeah, enjoy. Talk about being gratitude, mate. with the moments that
be
come
with
up.
The ones you love.
Yeah, and have gratitude for that, and live in that moment.
That'd
All right,
cool,
man. Thanks, bud.
See you, mate.
See you, mate.
Bye.
Talk soon.
1, 2, 3, go. Out of her head she sang. Come down and waste away with me. Down with me. So how you wanted it to be. Over my head, out of her head she sang. And I wonder, when I sing along with you, if everything could ever feel this real forever. If anything could ever be this good again. The only thing I'll ever ask of you, you gotta promise not to stop when I say when. She sang. I can breathe you in, hold you in. And now I know you've always been out of here, out of my head I sang. And I wonder when I sing along with you, if everything could ever feel this real forever, if anything could ever be this good again. The only thing I'll ever ask of you, you gotta promise not to stop when I say when. She sang. And I wonder, and I sing along with you, if everything could ever feel this real forever, if anything could ever be this good again. The only thing I'll ever ask of you, you gotta promise not to stop when I say